Hey everyone, it's Jacob. I'm doing another daily vlog here. And today, I again was checking some of the trending stories on LinkedIn, and there was one, and I'm sure you've probably seen this, talking about how we need to get rid of the word manager and replace it with something else. And once again, I felt like I was teleported back several decades. In fact, even in my book, The Future of Work, which I think came out in 2014, I had an entire section in there that talked about leaders versus managers. And people have also been talking about this for many, many years. This is not a new topic. In fact, at WD-40 Company, Gary Ridge, who's the CEO there, they don't use the word manager at all. They call everybody a coach. At Barry Waymiller, and I just put up an article about their CEO, Bob Chapman, on my LinkedIn profile. If you use the word manager, their CEO will legitimately get angry. When I interviewed him, he said, Jacob, we don't use the word manager. We use the word leader. And they have a team of 12,000 people. Everybody there is a leader. So I just wanted to share a little bit about this because it's not just about a name change. Now, granted, language, the way that we speak about these things is important. But the rationale behind this, and some of the things that I have argued for several years now, and some of the things that I see personally, is that even people who get promoted to positions where they are responsible for others do not want to be called a manager. And people who work for these people do not want to be managed. So it makes sense, and by the way, I completely believe that we need to get rid of the word manager altogether. I don't think any organizations should have manager titles of any kind, precisely because the word manager and management has been around for many, many decades, and it was created to specifically make sure that someone is literally watching and overseeing other people work to make sure that they are working. In other words, they are managing others. They don't give any decision-making power to anybody else. There's no focus on any employee experience. There's no trust, autonomy. It is literally to have somebody standing over others, managing them, making sure that they're working, okay? The actual synonyms for manager include slave driver, boss, and my favorite one, which is zookeeper. Okay, these are actual synonyms for the word manager. So it's clear that this is a way of thinking that is very, very outdated. It brings to mind the typical office space. So if you've seen the movie Office Space, you know that manager who comes by asking for the TPS reports. That's what comes to mind. But I wanted to just share a couple things here that I think are very, very relevant for people, for organizations who are considering making any kind of shift. So the first thing is, I'm personally a big believer in the word leader. It's why my new book is called The Future Leader. Now, to start, what we need to do is first define what leadership is and who a leader is. And I want to give you two examples because I interviewed over 140 CEOs at companies around the world. And from 140 CEOs, I got 140 different definitions of leadership. And the way that you define these things matters more than what you call it. Because, and I'll give you these two examples, because the way that you define leadership sets up the types of filters that you have in your company that will dictate who gets promoted to those positions. So for example, Hans Vestberg, who's a terrific person, a wonderful CEO, when I spoke with him, he defined leadership. This is what he said. He said, achieving the missions of the business, all else is footnotes. Okay? So let me know if that resonates with you. Achieving the missions of the business, everything else is footnotes. And I want to read you a definition from the CEO of Audi, from Abraham Schott. And so when I spoke with him, he told me leadership is about walking the extra mile and solving problems that others cannot solve. Foremost, leadership is about caring for people and not only for numbers. Okay, that's his definition of leadership. And I have 140 of these different definitions from different organizations. Some are very focused on numbers and business and profits. Others are focused more on coaching, diversity, these types of human metrics as well. So between those two definitions, let me know which one resonates more with you. The reason why this is important is because both of these organizations are wildly successful, but they also have different cultures. So simply just swapping out the name manager for leader is not going to do a lot if you don't change the definition of what those things are. Okay, so the first step, I think, for any organization is to define what is leadership and who is a leader. Then make the change. Because like I said, simply just swapping one name for another, if you don't change how you think about those things, and you don't change the mindsets and skills that go into those things, a name change will only get you so far, okay? So a couple other things that I want to look at. So one way that you can define leadership, and I talk about this in my book, this is kind of an example I gave. You know, when I think of a leader, I think of somebody who's able to see a picture of a world that is better than it is today, somebody who's able to rally the troops, rally employees to move towards that better vision, to make it a reality, and somebody who is able to do so in an ethical and human way. Okay, that could be one definition of leadership. You need to create your own of leadership and of leader. And think about who is somebody that you admire, respect, and want to emulate who is a leader. When I ask this question to most people, they typically think of someone like a Jeff Bezos or an Elon Musk, somebody that they've never met, but somebody that they assume is a leader because they've achieved great business success. But I always tell people, what if you think of a leader and they've created this amazing organization, but what they do hurts the environment? They're not ethical. They treat their employees poorly. They berate their employees. They don't like their customers. They're doing all these bad things, but they have a very successful and profitable company. This is why it's so important to define these things. Because again, when you define them, it'll dictate the types of leaders that get promoted to those types of positions. The other thing to remember is that being a leader doesn't mean that you are in a position of power of other people. You can be a leader of yourself. You don't have to be a leader of other people. You can be, but you don't have to be. Okay, so that's another distinction that I think we need to make. Now, we always assume that managers, they're the ones who delegate, they're the ones who do command and control, they enforce things, they manage a P&L, and we always think of leaders as these kind of visionary, these creatives. But the reality is, if you're in a position where you are responsible for others, you need to be able to do both of these things. You need to be able to manage a P&L. You need to be able to delegate. You need to be able to focus on decision making, but you also need to be able to do the vision, the engaging, empowering, motivating, inspiring people. So I think if you are in a position where you lead others, you need to have a lot of those qualities and a lot of those skills together. So those are my thoughts when I saw this article, and I'm curious to hear what you think. Because I absolutely believe it's time for us to get rid of the word manager and management altogether, but I think we need to think deeper than just a name change. We need to really think about the skill sets and the mindsets that are required. And again, this is what I talk about in my new book, The Future Leader, which is just coming out in a few weeks. And of course, I have to mention it. I hope you decide to get a copy, which if you're interested, you can go to getfutureleaderbook.com. So let me know what you think. Leave me a comment. Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you define leadership? Let me know what you think, and I will see all of you guys very soon.